we have an opportunity to get in on the ground floor as citizens of the Flare network. Not as products, not as fans, but as citizens and participants of the network, where we bring value and utility to the network, and thereby we are rewarded with network rewards, which decentralizes the data on the data provisioning network. And we have governance rights. So we have a vested ownership stake in the network. There's the asset and the network. The asset is the native gas token, but that comes with an ownership right of the network. It means you get distribution rights if you're wrapping and delegating to FTSOs. That is the single largest way to earn massive amounts of Flare. The broader community does not visually see, because it's not an easy, on the surface, pops right out at you, oh, here's 40% APY, you could earn this. It's a little more complicated. The barrier is higher, the learning curve is higher, it's a little more complex, it takes a little more effort to understand, it takes some broader knowledge of blockchain and the DeFi ecosystem to understand how the FS system works, where cross-chain is going, the future. Most of the community sees this as a token airdrop, and that's about it. There is a significant number of the 5 to 10 million people who understand what this is, and that is all that is necessary. We do not need 5 to 10 million people as the foundation for the Flare network. We need a core foundation of participants who want to be there, who want to provide value and build the ecosystem. And with that, you get the benefits of being rewarded. And it's all about, while everyone else is distracted by price, accumulation will be what the smart money will be doing. And then taking that FLR and putting it to work while still simultaneously earning the FTSO delegations and compounding them. And then the monthly distribution of 650 million Flare per month will come out. So that means 1 week to either purchase tokens, sell tokens, do whatever, and then there'll be an announcement that a vote will be in 7 days from that date, and then there'll be a random date chosen when the vote power will be recorded from. So the vote power for voting in the governance vote won't be at the day of the governance vote. It'll be a random block during the week prior's epoch. That proposal will then get triggered after 7 days of voting. If it passes the threshold, it gets triggered, implemented, and the 30 days start. And now within those 30 days, there'll be 3 random snapshots. And the system is designed so there's no way anyone's going to game the system or front run, because the snapshots don't even occur until the end of the month. So once the 30 days is over, it then goes back and takes 3 random snapshots of blocks during that month of every account's vote power. So even if you're delegating it, even if you have it in different accounts, even if it's in this potential delegation account, they're going to call it, or escrow account, you still get recorded to your account. So the vote power is always attached to the token holder, no matter what. Even if it's delegated somewhere else, even if it's having its rewards sent to crowdfund something, it's still the ownership of the token holder. And what's great about the design is that there literally is no risk by design that the vote power can have a bug in it, a smart contract can get locked, whatever could technically happen, and it will never affect your ability to move your actual token that the vote power is attached to. It will never inhibit that, and you'll always be able to freely move it. And this is built by design because it's detachable, it's API. And when it comes to compliance, this is far better than staking. There is no way anyone could argue that staking is better than this model because you don't give up custody and you're able to utilize the token while delegating. And you're able to direct those rewards somewhere else. And you have another governance vote that's attached to it. All the smart contracts on Flare, the tokens, will be synonymous with each other and they'll have similar designs. And this vote power is a new primitive in a way. Expect. Don't just say, oh, maybe it will happen. No, it will happen. All dApps will have the ability to allow you to earn the FTSO rewards. And don't get too caught up in feeling like you got to pick the top 10 providers, because that show's over when we go to Flare. With the 2.5% vote power cap and these infrastructure providers and Kraken running a FTSO and a validator and Blockdaemon and probably some exchanges too, that's going to level everything out. Some institutional players and other FTSOs that are run by dApps. It's going to level everything out. So basically, it's going to be other things that you're going to be looking for on who to delegate to. It's not going to be this bunch up at the top. Opportunity is literally, there is probably not a better opportunity that you could have been able to get in on the ground floor with zero investment going forward. And they've taken this much time, should be looked at as an absolute positive. If you followed along with all the going forward, they've taken this much time, should be looked at as an absolute positive. If you followed along with all the developments of what they have built and what they're trying to achieve here and how they've expanded the vision to these 4 pillars of Web 2 composability, a multi-chain constellation where different state connectors on different Flare networks and Songbird networks, and maybe Algorand, all can connect in a very tight, intertwined multi-chain. That's even more intertwined than Polkadot or Cosmos ever could be, but has outside interoperability as well. That's the vision here. And they have the protocols and they designed the components to make that happen, to realizing what's possible here. This is Web 3. You can have the ability to own your own identity, your own data, your own digital assets, not just crypto assets, digital identities, digital rights. They're coming, different tokenized assets. And data privacy is coming, all of that. And we're seeing the next wave, even though things are as dark and grim as they could be, it looks like, crypto's world is collapsing on itself, and it's lucky if it survives. But underneath all of that, the builders are building, and this is an even more reason to push for better infrastructure for the crypto markets. I don't think even some of the smartest people in crypto don't understand what that really means. And I've done a lot of research into this. These exchanges that we call exchanges, that model is not going to be the future. It's not how it's going to work. We're not going to have all these exchanges where everyone has an account on them and then you're siloed in and there's somebody's market makers on all of different exchanges and you're stuck on one, you can't interact with DeFi. That's all going bye-bye. The idea that a custodian can be an exchange and an exchange can have its own market maker and then it could commingle its users' assets, that is all not in line with the traditional markets even. It's already being built. So have you noticed that no institutional entity has purchased an exchange? and I've been saying this for a while, they're not going to, because it's built on legacy tech with no business model. It's like, well, all the activity is on the blockchains. You're trying to create a walled garden island and provide services, but you can't really offer the blockchain services to your customers. And only recently, with staking, have we seen the ability for that to happen, and it's exploded. So standard custody can offer the ability for the private keys to never even leave the HSMs, and the assets can be staked. So there's no risk now to your assets getting lost or taken or, anything. So the institutional side is providing the distributed exchange that's going on in the background. It's all going to happen kind of like at a layer 2, kind of where Flare is going with this. It's going to abstract it up, and the trading is going to be atomic. PolySign just announced Atomic Net, and I can't wait to do a video on this because it's so in line with what I've thought and said for so long now. They are really in line with what Ripple's building, and with what Interledger is building, with what Finboss is building with the digital wallet. How many people in the community have talked about the Finboss digital wallet? Nobody. Meanwhile, how many posts did I see on ISO 21022 and CBDCs? Hundreds. Waste of time, because it doesn't affect you, and it doesn't affect the near term at all. ISO 2022 has no effect in crypto right now, but it gets all the headlines. That is the most overhyped thing. It's great for payments, and yes, it has interoperability. It's messaging. That's all it is. Just relax with that. CBDCs are going to go through hundreds of more pilots. I did find some of the recent pilots interesting with DeFi, but there's these people out there connecting loose dots. They're enthused and they're excited and passionate. Maybe they came into this, 6 months ago or less than a year, and they're finding connections that, they're seeing dots being connected that are not really there, and they're loose, and they don't really have a full understanding of everything. Because to understand what Ripple, ODL, and even what Flare is doing, you have to go back to the beginnings, and you have to understand the vision. And understanding what Ripple's vision is, it's not to be this global reserve currency. It's not to be a global liquidity solution. It's not to be used by banks. What is it? It's to be internet of value, and the liquidity and the oil for that machine that's the internet of value, which is being able to trade any asset or any other asset, just like we do with data and email. So what does that imply? That implies a distributed global exchange. The wallets are the most important thing, but what we know as wallets are going to change, and this is something we're going to have to get used to. Everything is going to continuously change. Once you think you know something and how it works, and this is how it's going to be, well, the next innovation happens. In 6 months, the next thing happens. And wallets are one that we're starting to get an idea how it's going to go. Google Pay, whatever it is, if it has a URL, it could connect to it. That's the standard. This is where all mobile money is going with all these e-wallets. Bank accounts are dead. They're done. Anyone who tells you that bank accounts are going to last, it's nonsense. Now, cards, since the US and some Western countries are so entrenched in the debit cards that they can still work, but they'll work with the mobile wallets. And then we have digital crypto wallets. And then we have digital identity and credentials. How do those all work together? Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because the interoperability is all so easy. Like, you can integrate PayString and payment pointers are interoperable. They're URLs, ENS, domain names. They're all interoperable. All it has to do is have a $, and it could go over the internet. Now, it's the authorization protocol that allows for the fine-grained access. So, unlike a bank account where anyone in the bank has the ability to pull money, They can deposit money, anybody. You don't have full rights to that bank account. With this, you'll have fine-grained access that you could delegate, pull payment to come out, and only you could authorize it, and you actually have ownership of the payment pointer. Now, the account might be at a regulated institution through Finboss, connected to a bank account, but your actual payment pointer is yours, and yours alone. You have self-custody of it. So this is pretty powerful. Now, this could then get attached to a digital identity, but it's the Open API, Open Payments API that allows for the account-to-account programmable value exchange. Chris Larsen has said there's 3 things that are necessary. You need a settlement layer with a digital asset at a blockchain at the lower layer. You need some type of neutral interoperability protocol, and Interledger can be included in there, and you could also include open APIs a little, but you need something at the top, and everyone forgets this. And it's been ongoing and being used still by RippleNet and RippleX, and is the programming of the value, which means smart contracts and hosting, but not in the way that you might think. Codius was a hosting protocol that allowed for a configuration to be configured in many ways. One was as smart oracles. And the idea was to create the execution environment outside of the blockchain and separated from the consensus, but being able to hash back down to the consensus and being able to have distributed applications. Codius was adopted by RippleNet. It says it right on Codius's website, 2015. It is used by Ripple's partner banks. That's the hosting solution, cloud. Now, I don't know how they evolved it, because the configurations there's endless configurations. But what they do have is Stephen Thomas has some patents on how to verify that those nodes, all it is nodes running agreed upon code of the application. And if they all verify that they're all running the right software, then it could have consensus put on top. And this is where Tiger Beetle comes in. I think Tiger Beetle is the financial accounting database for the Internet of Value. 1 million transactions a second. It is going to be a beast. It is built for exchanging value. Now, it does debit and credits because it's abstracted. It's not on the blockchain. This is why, the 70,000, transactions per second by Solana and all that was nonsense. You're never going to trade on layer 1 like that. And that's why they kept the XRP ledger lean and mean, because you don't need to. Even hooks, it's very light. It's just for account controls and stuff, hooks. It's not meant to do DeFi and all that stuff. That's going to be abstracted. And that's where you put the services, and you can connect to private blockchains. And Stephen Thomas introduced DASI, which is basically Codius ++++++ as a peer-to-peer network that could do cloud hosting, cloud computing, training of machine learning, file storage, and smart contracts. And it can be globally distributed all over the world. And now it just happens that Interledger spinning up, the open network finally, with Finboss being the regulated entity with the money service provider license, to bootstrap the connectors and the tier 1s. And over the past 2 years, Interledger Foundation has given out hundreds of grants to different entities who are going to be part of that Interledger open network that they tried to do in 2018 and then pulled back on. That layer is below DASI. DASI, he claims, is just a personal project, and we'll see if it takes off. It is the evolution of what they've always wanted to do. So, he is being truthful when he says that, but also know that that's one of the end games on that Interledger provides the ability to pay the host in any currency. And now with open payments, it's a wrap. They got it. Now any host can be paid in any currency. Now, Ripple's building the distributed exchange, and liquidity hub. That's going to tap down into liquidity pools. Forget these crypto exchange spec trading liquidity. That is not where liquidity is coming from. There's not going to be no overnight price increase. There's not going to be no Shane Ellis stories and theories and price sets and all this other nonsense. It's going to be demand from liquidity and driving XRP into liquidity pools and combining that with a set of market takers that ODL has provided now. Because ODL is not going to increase the price of XRP. People see that. I see this all the time. It's not going to increase the price on its own. It's a facilitator of driving liquidity demands, because those market takers with ODL are buying and selling no matter what. They don't care if the price is up today, down today. They don't care if it at what price target. It doesn't matter. They need liquidity. They're going in, they're going out. So it creates this demand for people to provide liquidity. And order books just don't work as the only source, because retail really can't enter and provide market making, and they're fighting with the speculators. Now, that doesn't mean that exchanges can't tap into a broader distributed network where they already have it now. The inner exchange network, everybody goes crazy over these $200 million payments that are sent across the different exchanges, like Binance wired 200 million. Binance didn't wire any 200 million. And what many of those are payment channels closing. And they can be by anybody, a custodian, a group of custodians. It can be by anybody, and it closes out and then it hits the ledger. But exchanges have different payment channels between them where they could just do off-chain relationships and then close the channel out. Kind of like Lightning, but better. And this allows for them to access liquidity easily and shuffle things around. But that's just one component now. That's just really just transferring it. It's not doing any trading or anything. You need the ability to create plug and play wallet services. So this idea that everyone's going to sign up to a Coinbase exchange maybe was great in 2021 to 2013. But now, any entity, there's somebody, Ripple's building the infrastructure, and there's others too. Nobody could build a super wallet by themselves. Like Google can't just come out and say, yep, we're building a super wallet, we're doing everything. Even Robinhood wants to, but there's no pathway, because even the exchanges can't, because you have the major issues and hurdles. We have the issue of being able to plug into different liquidity sources and then having a nice front end. Like Uphold is probably the closest model, in my opinion, that sees the future. That's where things are going, because they're not an exchange. We don't need more exchanges, but we need better user experiences, more access to services, to dApps, to other applications, and having the ability to have your own wallet that could connect to your payment pointer or domain name or whatever we're going to call it, ENS, that's then linked to your real identity. That could get verified, and now you can pass all the compliance tests, KYC, AML. So you could go wherever you need to go and access. And now the trading and the liquidity can be aggregated from thousands of different endpoints. You don't just have, 200 exchanges. And this is where Alameda and FTX, is a core problem of the market infrastructure. And it's just not resonating. with many because we see it as, oh, these are the exchanges, the institutions are going to come in and they're going to want them. They control everything. But no, they don't want them. They don't want to deal with the trading aspect, the matching engine. They don't deal with that. NASDAQ does that in stock markets. Brokers deal with just the broker. And then they deal with their market maker and liquidity provider who accesses them things. It's going to be analogous, synonymous to that a little bit, but it's going to be different because you're going to have more venues that you could access assets from, and then there's going to be these enterprise compliant DeFi infrastructures that start getting built in, like, I think we're going to start seeing an enterprise compliant layer 2 type DeFi pop up in the next year or two, maybe not yet. I think that's where Flare and Ripple are going for. Now, that's not to say that all DeFi dies because of that, or even that takes off, because the one thing is, if a blockchain, and community needs to understand this, if a blockchain is truly decentralized, nobody has admin controls, nobody controls it, there's nothing to enforce. You can't enforce KYC. It'd never be enforced on blockchains. There's no need to. Flare's protocols for minting F assets, Layer Cake, really aren't KYC. There's no reason to KYC. If it's a trustless, decentralized protocol that is governed by the Flare community of token holders, Flare has no admin control, so what are they going to enforce? How do they even enforce KYC? Oh, they say, okay, you got a KYC on the front end, and then 2 other front ends pop up. Anyone could build a front end. When the protocols are open and nobody has admin control, means they're decentralized, anyone could access that protocol and give you an access point on the internet and the web. So this is why the whole idea, they're going to crack down on DeFi. They might try in some aspects, but this is on the internet. There's not just one gateway into the blockchain or just into the applications. And there's not much development in private blockchains going on right now. There's a lot of, things going on, but network effects wise, there's no real ecosystem developing there yet. It's getting there, and it's slow moving, dealing with those institutions moving to blockchain. And they have to find product market fit. We don't even have tokenized assets yet. So all this is going to happen. The crypto market infrastructure needs to get its house in order before tokenization and stablecoins and maybe CBDCs, which I still don't think that CBDCs are going to, I would bet against CBDCs taking off in the way that they describe them currently. I don't think that they're going to be able to be just digital representations of fiat without changing the monetary system, and they're all going to go on some same platform with each other and make little powwows, and then the banks can transact and these little tests at a global scale. Never going to happen. And governments and central banks do not create technology. They're pipe dreaming. They bring all these industry players together. Oh, let's create this and this thing. It's an innovation hub. It's cool, but Anthony, I forgot his name, Warren, and the other guy from James Wallace from Ripple, and multiple others said 3 to 7 years, most likely 5 to 7, before any significant Western country has CBDCs. And that's, what can happen in 5 to 7 years? How much innovation? So, that's all just hype. They just want to stay relevant. And, those BIS reports, huge grain of salt with everything I read. It's all a lot of bull mixed in there with some good stuff. You got to look who the author is. There's some real bad authors there that are trying to push a narrative. They're threatened. I mean, DeFi is literally the biggest threat to BIS and I don't know about central banks, but central banks too, but not necessarily the commercial banks. Why is JP Morgan so big on DeFi? Because they know they can make services and products. Hey, that's just a layer there above. They don't need to own the DeFi or own the protocols. They don't have to. And they're not trying to own the blockchain. They're looking for the business model to build on it. Everyone thinks, oh, JP Morgan controls Ethereum. None of that. Stop with that. The idea is not to own necessarily the tokens. They want the next business model and value to go through them. So they have to position themselves. And I don't see why any of these institutions or entities are going to be maxis. Like, well, unless you're Square and Cash. Some early ones are. With Web3. It's coming. Web3 is what Ripple's focusing on, Flare's focusing on. We need to start focusing on. We need to get our act together as a community and stop with this narrative that just is it's like Groundhog's Day, over and over again. Like, enough. Please. Look at what's going on right in front of us. Get people aware of what they should be looking for. Because when it happens, there's going to be a scramble. There's going to be some confusion, some head scratching. But most of it will probably go over people's heads because when the case settles, everyone's looking at price speculation. What are you here for? Are you here to think you're going to get mooned and then run off to the sunset on an island? And that's it, and you're leaving, and you say you're part of a community. Well, what's a community? Now, community takes us to another level. It's not just being sleuths on the internet. It's not just educating content. Well, educating content is part of community. Sharing knowledge, discussing, but we're taking it to a step further now. We're going to actually participate. You're going to provide your XRP for liquidity to help out the Internet of Value. Now, you're not going to keep it on your nano ledger, cold storage, which is a dying, archaic setup. Even though it's probably one of the most secure, it's going to be not the most secure very soon as the new key sharding and other services come about. Because you can't use the asset with it on the nano ledger. It doesn't help the network. Nothing against nano ledgers. I just want to be clear here. Cold storage is safe, but I've seen more mistakes made with these cold wallets than I've ever seen with anyone with software with mobile wallets because of all the different things that happen. But you want to use your assets now. Exit plans. What are you exiting to? What system? This is the future financial system. So you need to start thinking about what's the future cycle looking like? What's the DeFi? Don't get caught in this rut to where everything's down, everything's bad, the Orwellians are taking over and all that nonsense. This is not going away. It is a huge push from this industry and the amount of corporations and institutions that are involved, from Google just entering now. That is going to bring in the developers. So I am more bullish than ever, but I think it's now time to prepare for what it's almost more than just trading. If you're just looking at the chart, you're missing like 8/10 of the whole industry. There's new tools coming. There's new metrics coming. There's new opportunities coming. So we need to be abreast on those. And the opportunities on Flare are going to be massive. It might just take a little while, but it's going to accumulate, and then deploy.
So I was always of the mind that this system was going to be ripe for some kind of a disruption. And when I saw DeFi, I started to see where that disruption was going to come from. And I started to understand that this is going to be where it goes. And what I've tried to tell people is what you need to understand about this new DeFi system is it will start in the third world and it will grow from there in the second world, third world, and then it will come here and completely flatten you. So it's just going to come from the rest of the world imposing it on us. And that's why we, the United States, I don't see us in any way being the leader in this.
Oh,
I think we are it's going to be rammed down our throat is what it's going to be. And part of the reason is, as a traditional finance guy, I'll come back to, I know traditional financial people that have accounts on Coinbase. And they just think that speculating up and down on the price of Bitcoin, that's it. Or maybe I'll get fancy and do it on Ethereum too. And it just occurred to me that this is a brand new financial system and that this is going to replace the current CeFi financial system.